Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Montano. I'm a trainer and excellence coach at MindGrasp, and it's my pleasure to welcome you once again to one of our live sessions here on the MindGrasp page. So I've started, a few days ago, I started a new series about hypnosis and dispelling some misconceptions that lots of people might have about hypnosis. So we talked about how, for instance, trance, the state of trance, is actually very similar to lots of waking states that people normally experience. So when going into trance, people shouldn't expect to feel otherwise than they already have the experience of feeling. We've also talked about how far from being about control over someone, hypnosis and the process of going into trance is actually about how to learn to take conscious control, deliberate control of your perceptions and what perceptions you actually choose to accept and what perceptions you delete, distort, or just completely set aside. So actually the process of learning how to go into trance enables people to be more in control of what their focus is, of what their current state is, and what exactly they're choosing to get done. And ultimately, we talked about how the process and everything surrounding hypnosis, if done properly with integrity, is actually about creating options in people's lives, providing them with the concrete experience that they have options, that there is far more than they usually notice, and that actually they can choose how to reorient their focus and thus how to set about working towards their goals. So today I want to move into something more fundamental to everything that I've been talking about right now. And actually, it's fundamental to pretty much everything I've ever discussed on this channel or in any of my posts, and that is fundamental to the work I do. And namely, what exactly is the conscious mind and the unconscious mind? What is the connection between the two all about, and what are each of their roles? Because I kept mentioning them, but I realized I've never really fully addressed what either of them and what the relationship between them truly is about. And that's, I want to approach this subject simply because one of the most famous mind workers, I could call them, namely Sigmund Freud, the creator of hypnotherapy. Oh, hello, Doina. Sigmund Freud eventually dismissed hypnosis, although he was trained in it. He dismissed it on the grounds that, well, it might bring to surface and it might set in motion the nastiness of the unconscious mind. Rumor has it, and maybe it's just a vicious rumor, but rumor has it that Freud actually dismissed hypnosis because due to his excessive consumption of cocaine, he had very bad teeth, and so he had to wear dentures. And dentures at the beginning of the 20th, end of the 19th, and beginning of 20th century weren't really that good. And so he very often had problems, properly articulating what he was saying. And in the process of inducing trance, that really makes a difference. And so apparently, to hide his embarrassment, talk about Freudian slip and coping mechanism, Freud dismissed the whole field of hypnotherapy. And so, he embedded a certain anti-hypnosis bias and a very strong bias against what he called the nastiness of the unconscious mind in the whole field of mental work. But in fact, and this is what I want to address today, getting right the proper connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind and what their roles are is essential to well-being in all areas of life and getting what you want rather than what you don't want. Because the conscious mind, I mean, most people would think that all we're about is the conscious mind. So what we have in our conscious current attention, the rational, logical, linear, Newtonian conscious mind. And that's all there is to us. But in fact, that's just the very tip of the proverbial iceberg. It's just scratching the surface of what our mind is about. Because most of our nervous structures, and in fact I would like to recommend a really good book about it. It's called Subliminal by Leonard Mlodinov. That's Mlodinov. Subliminal addresses what exactly are the neurological structures that support the unconscious mind and what its importance is. Because if you were to think about the way your body works right now, you're not consciously thinking of the beating of your heart or how you're breathing. Well, some of you might be trained in breath work, yoga or somatic work, and so you might be consciously doing breath work. But for most people, most of our breathing is done pretty much unconsciously. Or your body's response to heat. I mean, here in Iași, it's been really, really warm and moist over the past few days, and so the body adapts to it in certain ways. All of that is beyond our conscious focus, and it's the realm of the unconscious mind. And in fact, the most significant purpose of the unconscious mind is to support the working of the body. Now, I will only, talk about scratching the surface. I will only begin addressing its purposes today, and I will go more in depth tomorrow. But suffice to say that the main things that the unconscious mind does with us and for us are taking care of learning, behaviors, and change. All of those are done unconsciously. Now, we begin, of course, we first learn everything consciously, but then it's stored and put into practice unconsciously. Now, I imagine lots of people are drivers, or look, even more basic. Everyone here once learned how to walk. We've been doing it for most of our lives, not just our adult lives, but most of our lives, pure and simple. And yet there was a time when we didn't walk, when we were, just barely crawling as babies, or even before that. So we had to consciously learn how to put one foot in front of the other, how to stand upright, how to shift our weight from one leg to the other. It wasn't easy work. And yet, after we mastered it, we can say, at about, 1.5 up to 2 years of age, or even quicker than that. Some of you are early bloomers, early adopters, so to say. We started doing it, and we've been doing it for all our lives ever since, unconsciously. We don't even give half a thought to our walking process. And we do even more than that with our legs. We learn how to dance, maybe. We learn how to use it for climbing, running, etc. So we first learned it consciously, but then we've been doing it unconsciously. And it's an embedded process. Hello, Diana, welcome. So this is part of what the unconscious mind does. And this goes for everything that we've learned to do. Writing, reading, you might recall just the effort it took when we were, just beginning school to learn how to read and write, to recognize each letter, then to pronounce them, then to stick them together in words, then to read them out loud, and then finally read them in just in our minds. But now, we do it automatically. We don't even think about it. We see a word, we immediately recognize the meaning of it. So all of that is unconscious, because if it were for the conscious mind to do it, we just couldn't pay attention to anything anymore. And in fact, the way I'd like to make the comparison is the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious mind is kind of like the relationship between the driver and the car. Now that I mentioned driving beforehand. So the driver has the steering wheel, all the commands, the clutch, the pedals, and the driving stick, well, I mean for those who drive stick and don't drive automatic. But even if you drive automatic, you still have to switch into reverse from time to time, or parking. So the driver has all the commands and decides, which way to go. But then the driver doesn't have to take care. Ooh, hello, Alice. The driver doesn't have to consciously take care of every single piston or how every single wheel in the car spins. No, that's just how the car works by itself. The driver has to keep their eyes on the prize, on where they want to get to. But you see, what happens is that most people don't even have clear destinations in mind, and so they set their conscious mind on autopilot, and their unconscious mind is left scrambling. Because if you don't consciously set destinations, the direction where you want your whole edifice to go, then the unconscious mind will just pick up whatever commands is out there in the environment. So you have to constantly make sure that you're focusing on wherever it is that you want to get to. Just like the driver focuses on the destination. And then the car, well, if you've taken care of it, if you've taken it to the mechanics, if you've given it the right fuel, if you've restored its parts, very important, and taken care that everything is functioning properly, the car will take you to the destination. And it's like that with the connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And now that I've mentioned it, learning behaviors in the body, they're also the domain of the unconscious mind. Everything that we learn how to do consciously first, then we are able to automatically do unconsciously, and that's why by repetition people improve. But this brings us to the field of change, because very often people say, well, I've been like this my whole life. How is it that I could possibly change? I know it doesn't work for me. I know that, for instance, this fear of public speaking, fear of going out in front of an audience and presenting my ideas in front of the world. I know this doesn't work for me. And I know that my ideas are really worthwhile, like TED Talks, ideas worth spreading. Or I know that, I should be exercising more, but there's just something that holds me back. It's so comfortable to not do it and to just rest or watch TV or YouTube or whatever. So what happens is, if everything that was about us was the conscious mind, we just consciously decide on what we need to do, and we'd be able to immediately do it. Knowing that something is right for us, knowing that we want something would be enough to get it done. But actually we need the cooperation of the unconscious mind, because it is in charge of, the deep-seated behaviors. And if it took a second to, get scared of, let's say, coming back to the example of public speaking at one point in your life, and you were scared out of your wits, or you had an inappropriate experience of feeling less than comfortable in front of an audience, and you didn't know what to do back then, it took just 1 second to create, or even less than that, to create the neurological link that triggers the feeling and the behavior. Why would it take any less than that to undo it? And in fact, that's the experience that I have with my clients when, as Milton Erickson put it, I assist them, I enable them into getting in rapport with their unconscious minds. Because if you want to make deep and also lasting changes with your behavior, you want to get the cooperation of the unconscious mind to really make that neural click, and to get to the deep seats of learning, as well as to make sure that the behavior is settled in the body and it becomes your new baseline, your new default. Because very often people try to change only consciously, and trying to do change on a conscious basis, it's kind of like trying to burn a CD while screaming at the computer screen. Well, I don't know who burns CDs anymore, but you can think of whatever whatever you'd be doing on the computer, like I don't know, text editing or making image editing, programming, etc., without using either the keyboard or the mouse or any other feature. Just, going all out, screaming at the computer screen. And in several thousand millions years, however long, you might send off enough energy to make, just the tiniest switch inside the computer's matrix. But it would be much easier if you'd actually use its its designed commands and work with the code. And this is exactly what the process of hypnosis. Oh, hello, Christina. Welcome. This is exactly what the hypnotherapeutic process is about, enabling people to hack into their own source code on an unconscious level and make the changes that they need to make. And in fact, enabling them to then do it by themselves. Because you see, my purpose in the work I do with my clients and my students isn't to hold them onto me, hold them connected as though by an umbilical cord. No, not at all. My purpose is to give them the experience of their own power, of the fact, oh, hello, Krina, welcome. To give them the experience that they have the power to do things by themselves, that they've had the power all along, and that from now on they can just rewire themselves in whichever way they need to. This is the experience that I've had throughout both my studies of NLP and especially the Master Trainer program that I'm undergoing right now, or as I like to call it, the NLP PhD. So more about the purposes and the functioning of the unconscious mind tomorrow. I hope you've had fun today watching it. Hello, Stefan. Noticed you as well. And let me know what further questions do you have, what curiosities, or how you've been using this information. Maybe some of you realize you've been using it already and making it work for you. Thank you very much for watching. Lovely having all of you over, and looking forward to getting together for our next session tomorrow. Have a brilliant evening and wishing you all the best. Bye.